Horror films are a contentious topic among film lovers and cinephiles, as they are often divided on what to make of the genre. Some people praise horror as a fantastic genre that keeps having unique concepts, while others despise it, saying that it's a constant circle jerk of cliches and repetitive stories, and the worst part, no actual scares, aside from, the jump scare, doing air quotes. Where do I land in this bracket? Somewhere down the middle. On one hand, there are some horror movies I would consider some of my favorite movies ever, like Black Christmas, Alien, and Aliens, The Blair Witch Project, Lake Mungo, and The Thing, which is probably my personal favorite horror movie of all time. With that said, there are some stinkers in the genre, some definite stinkers, like The Swarm, Old, Deep Blue Sea, and Apollo 18, which is probably the worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life. When a Stranger Calls falls in the middle bracket for me, and for a lot of other people as well. This movie is a gigantic snooze fest, but it could have been good. If there's one thing this film is known for, it's its opening 23 minutes. They are considered some of the best and scariest in all of horror history. To be more accurate, this video isn't a review of the movie. And just to make sure you don't think it is 6.5 out of 10. There you go. Wouldn't recommend aside from the opening. There isn't anything in this movie, aside from its opening, that's worth talking about. Can you honestly say with a straight face that you would watch a serious review of When a Stranger Calls, a random ass slasher from 1979 after the success of Halloween? Really? I'm just exclusively talking about the opening scene of the film. This is Anatomy of a Scene, but with a budget of 2 cents and a dried out condom. The opening follows a babysitter named Jill Johnson, who is babysitting the kids of Mr. and Mrs. Mandrakis while they're out at a party. Since the kids are already asleep, Jill doesn't need to check on them. While after they leave, Jill gets a few strange phone calls from a man, who sometimes says, "Have you checked the children?" After he keeps calling a few more times, she asks for help over the phone and the police decide to trace the calls and the phone so they can find out where the calls are coming from. After a while, Jill gets another call from the man who says that he wants her blood. Immediately after hanging up, Jill gets a call from the police, who give her the shocking Shyamalan twist, even though this wasn't directed by Shyamalan, that the caller is inside the house. As she tries to escape, she sees the shadow of the caller upstairs, but makes it out of the house in time. Then, spoilers, the film hits you with its second twist. The kids have been dead the entire time. Well, not really. They were killed by the caller, named Kurt Duncan, shortly after the parents left. As described by the protagonist of the film, John Clifford, in a later scene, Duncan apparently ripped the children apart with his own hands. That is so f***ed up, but it does a good job at showing why Clifford needs to kill this psychopath. With that said, after the opening, the film cuts to 7 years later, where Duncan has escaped from a mental hospital, which they shouldn't have put him in a mental hospital in the first place, because if my kids were literally torn to shreds. I want this man executed via firing squad, electric chair, and lethal injection at the same time. And the rest of the film follows both Clifford and Duncan's perspectives, and this is where the film takes a gigantic nosedive. It went from a tense psychological thriller with a slasher twist to an incredibly boring neo-noir that isn't scary or even interesting in the slightest. However, there is a reason for this. This movie is based on a short film by the same people, The Sitter. It's essentially the opening of this film, but just by itself. I think Fred Walton, director and co-writer, and Steve Fecke, I think that's his name, co-writer and co-producer, didn't exactly know how to turn this short film into a 90-minute film. So they didn't turn the short film into that runtime and didn't cut it out, but rather took the secret third option of including in the film and then turning the film on its head but to make it a boring sleuth drama with thriller elements. This confusion can also be seen in the advertising. I watched teasers, trailers, and TV spots of this movie, and all of them, without fail, exclusively show the opening 23 minutes, and literally nothing else. I think this film needs to be used as an example of false advertising Though, can it really be? Because the opening is fantastic and scary, but the rest of the film is about as interesting as hearing the story of World War II from Hitler's janitor. It's pretty telling when you only include a certain part of your film in the advertising. Now here's the funny part. In the final 15 to 20 minutes of the film, we see the return of Jill Johnson, who is now married with 2 kids of her own, and takes all the precautions with the babysitter, like checking after a certain amount of time. However, while out, she gets a phone call from Duncan, sending her into a psychological episode. This ending sequence is great and has some pretty tense moments and a cathartic conclusion. I wonder why. Yeah, so as it turns out, whenever Carol Kane is on the screen, the film is good. At first, I was bothered by her voice, but I got used to it. And after getting through the rest of the film, however, I would like to apologize for just insulting Carol Kane's voice. She's easily the best part of the film, and her performance helps the opening and end quite a bit. So what's my solution to the problem? Well, in my opinion, the film should have been about Jill and that's it. Yeah, a 90-minute film with one character on screen, and would end with Duncan confronting Jill and then fighting before he escapes and Clifford gives chase, killing him. Then, it would reveal the twist that the kids were dead the entire time. I don't know if that would exactly make an interesting film the whole way through, but that's the point. The constant creepy calling makes this large house feel claustrophobic, and you start to question where this guy actually is. In conclusion, this film has had the elements to be a horror classic, but ultimately fell short. It included a factor of elements. The rest of the film not being interesting, the filmmakers not knowing how to turn short into a film, so they kind of didn't, the blatant false advertising, and a lack of Carol Kane. Whatever it may be, I recommend you watch the opening scene, and that's really it. If you want to watch the rest of the film, go ahead, but be forewarned, you will be bored beyond belief. Also, editing the script. While writing this, I found out that the 2006 remake actually turned the opening into a feature film. To good effect is questionable, but hey, at least someone did it.